Hey, Plaidman here. So today is gonna be kind of an interesting one. I'm sorry, by the way. I should start with hello, Plaidman here. I messed up, peeps, and I didn't make a video yesterday, and I was gonna do it really, really late, and I got convinced otherwise. So instead, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make 2 videos tomorrow, which I know. And I feel like this should be a lesson for everyone, myself included. I got to remind myself that, gosh, I can't remember exactly the rule of thumb, but it's just like if you want to do a thing, and if you set a goal for yourself to do a thing, it's not okay to be like, oh, I won't do it today, I'll just do it tomorrow. That doesn't work, okay? So I'm aware of that, which is half the battle, okay? Like you need to be aware that that doesn't work. That's not a good life lesson. Quite the opposite. If you agree to do a thing or you say you're going to do a thing, then do the thing. So that's just something I had to kind of get off my chest and explain and tell you all that I made a mistake and I will not be doing it again if I can help it. Anyhow, so it was weird. For the record, if you see me switching this around, it isn't because I don't love my fiance. It's just simply because it's a scotch tight and my finger is a scotch big. So it just, and I'm also getting used to it, and it's just a little constricting and just feels weird. So I'm working on it, whatever. But don't think for a second that I'm like, oh, well, if I'm going out in public, I'm just going to switch this up because, hey, ladies, like, no, not what I do. Anyhow. I'm switching it right now, just, for record's sake. No, silliness aside. So, I was trying to figure out what, and I've written a couple of things about what I wanted to talk about, and I had some really wonderful discussions and future subjects that I do want to talk about, that I want to know more about is, Disney and what they're doing and why it's good, why it's bad, who's running them, good, bad, and different. And I had a wonderful discussion today with a friend of mine about politics and stuff like that. And I actually don't want to talk about that right now. It's late for me and there's so much to talk about. And frankly, there's so many people who are paying really, really close attention and talking about it in great detail and so on and so forth. And I don't have a solid thought on it. I will say that what I enjoyed the most about talking about it is he did not agree with me on a lot of things. And it was really, really nice to have a good conversation with somebody who didn't agree and just be okay with agreeing that we didn't agree. And I don't know. I learned a lot. I don't know if he learned anything. And I don't mean that meanly. I feel like he knew lots of things and my counterpoints, I don't know if that sunk with him or he cares. And it doesn't really matter. It's not a problem. You as an individual, if you learn something from it, if you gain something from it, that's what should matter. I think it's important to not overly worry and concern yourself about whether or not somebody else learned something or changed their mind. Did you gain something from it? Did you grow as a person and as an individual? And if so, that's really terrific. I could argue and would argue that whatever you do in life, you should be growing from that experience. If you're not, then what are you doing? You're kind of just wasting your life. But I just, that was kind of what I learned today in a simple microcosm of a sense is that it is imperative and important for you to get outside of your own space, outside of your own echo chamber, and talk to people who mayhap don't agree with you. And this isn't to say that you need to agree with them or they need to convince you of their way. However, there's a tremendous amount of value in not just being stuck in the same friends, same echo chamber, and learn something. Even if you think it's wrong, and there were several things that I heard that I thought was wrong, but now I have, oh, wow, I should look up this and read this book and, listen to this person. And I feel better and fuller because of it. So that really wasn't what I wanted to talk about today. And I've already taken up a bunch of time. I don't know if I'm going to be able to zip through it, so we're just going to go on to the next topic, which is relationships and modern day stuff. And I just kind of wanted to make some points. I'll probably go more into detail on this because I think it's a very valid thing to talk about, which is modern day relationships are weird, man. They're weird. And not necessarily in a bad way. And I'm sure throughout time they've always had their unique quirks. But there's a lot of like tropes that happened in the past that aren't really relevant now. And some of them we keep going, right? Like this concept of getting engaged, right? For a certain amount of time and then having this big old wedding and the whole concept of the white dress. This other concept of like asking your significant, like for guys, we're expected to ask our, if you're getting married to a woman, but you're expected to ask your lady's dad, hey, do I have permission to marry your daughter? And it comes from a certain thing. It really comes from a time when the father of the daughter was expected to pay a dowry, basically pay this guy to marry his daughter. And in doing that, he's taking on the responsibility of the daughter and the financial responsibility away from the dad. And so that was kind of the agreement. Now, I'm not saying that that was a good system, but that was kind of where it came from. And I'm not even suggesting that it's something that we should change. I actually, I might have grumbled, but I thought it was kind of cool in its own way to have that be something I'm supposed to do. When I asked for my lady to marry me, it was expected that I would talk to, and I did talk to both of her parents separately and her sisters, and effectively got them, they got time to talk about what they wanted to talk about and approve me, if you will. And granted, we had been dating for 4 years, so it's not like, it's not quite the same thing. Again, back in the day, it was, you'd have a dating cycle that was weeks or even months, depending. And then there would be the asking, and then there would be an engagement. And it was, the engagement was really only a certain amount of time until the wedding was good. And then it was like, cool, wedding. And then you go back and forth on like, well, who's paying for the wedding? And it's this whole thing. Anyways, there's some things that are not necessarily bad. I just think some of it's a bit antiquated, and I feel it's a good thing if you want to do it and your spouse wants it to be done. It's not a bad thing. I don't really think it's a detriment, but just realize where it comes from and why you're doing it. So, long story, but simply put, I was informed about a story just about this and this, and there was something that kind of came up, and it's been part of this story where you have a couple who's been dating on again, off again for 6+ years or whatever. And I thought that was interesting. And I generally have this concept that if you're dating for quite some time, and modern dating, which entails, you know, the birds and the bees, well, at a certain point, I feel like each person in that relationship should be asking, like, what are we doing? What are we doing? What is our goals? Do they align? Like, are we doing this? Are we doing this? Are we going the same way? Are we going different ways? Like, what is happening? And I used to have a rule, and it's not a perfect rule, okay? But generally speaking, if I was ever asked and somebody gets in like a big breakup, well, most relationships I've ever seen, they have at least one big fight there. It's like, oh, I'm done with you, rah! Right? But they usually really love each other, so they end up getting back together, right? And usually they grow from and learn from that experience, and things get better. Where I find it's kind of fascinating is when things get better and then they don't, and then they basically break up again. And that I find interesting because, okay, so now you've had a relationship, breakup. Had the same relationship, broken again. Where I have issue with is when they're like, well, let's try it a third time, or a fourth, or a fifth, or a sixth time. And I'm like, okay, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing again and again and again and expecting a different result. Now, that isn't to say that, hey, maybe it won't work the third time. Maybe it will. But if you have a breakup in your relationship and then you're like, oh, well, okay, let's try again. And they didn't change or haven't significantly changed. And I mean change, not, oh, I say I want this. And this is one thing that irritates the crap out of me. When you get women who want to get married and they want to have kids, and they're with a guy who hasn't really made that happen, in the sense that he hasn't really given her a ring and hasn't really made the effort to kind of like move them towards that direction. And the woman's annoyed and she confronts the guy, and the guy is like, oh yeah, like, no, I totally want kids, babe. Like, yeah, I know, of course I want kids with you. Who else would I have it with? And yeah, no, I love you, babe. You're amazing. Blah, blah, blah. All these like verbal platitudes and verbal agreements, but the woman's like, okay, well, where's the ring? It's been X number of time. And I think that that's a valid point, and I think that it's imperative for women to kind of realize, like, look, relationships require both parties to be in agreement with what they're doing and where they're going and how they're going forward, and the speed in which they're doing it. So if one party, usually is the woman in this case, is like, what's going on? Then perhaps you as a woman need to look at like, okay, as much as I like this guy, it's not really happening. And I need to perhaps go a different way. And just end it and find somebody else. Because as much as you might like, and it's safe, secure, or whatever, this lover, if they're not really doing it and you're trying to twist their arm, or it may not literally, but like figuratively, it seems like you're trying to get them into like, okay, give me a ring. Okay, let's have a baby. Okay, let's buy a house together. And they're just like, yeah, no, eventually. There's like laziness and general like, okay, you need to kind of push the guy. And then there's like, it's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. Just move on. Like, you spent this time, take it as a big life lesson and move on and do yourself a solid. Because it's probably not going to happen. Because if it was, he would do it. Like, anybody can always come up with excuses. But if you're at that point where you've broken up several times or whatever and keep getting back together for whatever reason, or the guy's like, yeah, we'll get married. Yeah. Soon, babe. I just need to save up some more money or whatever. It's like, okay, how many times has he said that? And does he keep saying that, but then not doing any of the actions? So that's one thing. Like, if you're looking at the dude's finances and he's like, yeah, I just need to save up money for the ring, but then he's not saving up money and he's constantly going to the bar and like hanging out with his boys or buying new doodads or stuff like that. And none of those are inherently bad, and whatever your deal is with your significant other is fine. But I just feel like that's something a woman should keep on top of. There is a last little thing, and I know this is kind of like a hodgepodge, weird mix of stuff. I got really, really lucky and have a terrific fiance who is extremely patient with me and helped deal with a lot of things that I was going through. So she's seen me different shapes, different sizes, different financial situations, and has been there for me throughout all of it. And that isn't to say that she's perfect. I find her perfect for me. But that isn't to say that our relationship was perfect. We've had many disagreement or arguments or how we do things. But what I will consistently say is that for better and for worse, there has been an overall like, oh my God. Sorry, my cat is being so... There's been this push as a team to do this, okay? And if there's a time where one person's kind of going off stray, that's, come on guys, it's all our fault. Then, sometimes the woman's got to put you back on. So all I'm saying is that if you're a couple and you're both going this way, great. If one of them's going like this and they can't go back on, and you keep trying to get them back into the fray and they keep not doing it, maybe it's time for you to be like, cool, I'm gonna go over here and just go over there and let them do this, and then that's it. Goodbye. So that was kind of a long one for Plaidman today, and I felt as if it was very all over the place and a little low energy. And I'm sorry about that, but it was kind of a weird thing, and I just wanted to get it all off of my chest. We're going to have 2 videos tomorrow. I'm so looking forward to it. One's going to be a super fun one, and the other one's going to be a little bit more of the normal, serious one. Anyways, tune in tomorrow. Thank you very much, peeps. Deuces. Bye.